She is a participating member of the Model Aquatic Health Code Steering Committee, a board member for the Conference for the Model Aquatic Health Code, and the Joint Committee on Recreational Water Facilities for NSF Standard 50. She's going to be speaking on how will the MAHC be renewed and sustained.
Good afternoon, everyone. Everybody hear me okay? Good deal. The carbs should just be kicking in right about now. So if I see any heads nodding, I'm gonna, I'm watching. So hopefully we'll keep you entertained here. How many of you happened to have the pleasure of being with us on yesterday, for the CMAHC organizational meeting? Great, quite a few of you. So that's awesome. A lot of this will be a little repetitive because we're going to go over, now we have the first edition of the MAHC. Yoo-hoo, I'm really happy about that. When, let's see, was it Doug that approached me originally, I think, and recruited me? I think it was something like 4 months, of work. That's how I was able to talk my boss into it. 7 years later, but we have the first edition, so I'm excited about that too. So, but we don't want this to be stagnant, right? Technology changes, things change, so we need to have some mechanism, some way of renewing this and making sure that all that hard work was for naught. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So CDC, make it clear, I mean, this has been spoken to already, but CDC owns the MAHC. So the Conference for Model Aquatic Health Code does not own the MAHC. So it's up to CDC to actually do the updating and renewing of the Model Aquatic Health Code itself. But we need to have an easy mechanism for them to be able to do that, and we need it to be self-sustaining so that whether Michael's there or whoever's there, it's still going to happen. And we need a conduit where we can collect the information from people as science changes, technology changes. We need to have some clearinghouse where you can say, hey, we need to make this code change, to address this issue, or we've found out now, something about chloramines or stabilizer, whatever it is, and so that we can address those changes to the code. So we need a place to gather that information, decide whether it has some scientific merit or not, or whether it needs more research, and then summarize those changes and give them to CDC in a nice package saying, hey, this is what everybody's looked at and approved. We've got industry's buy-in. We've got health department's buy-in. We should change the code now. We are loosely modeling this after the Conference for Food Protection that FDA uses in doing the updates to the model food code. But knowing, aquatics is a lot different than food. So there's going to be some changes. I mean, no, we can't do everything exactly the same. We don't have the same number of members or those kinds of things. So it's going to look a little different. So what do we see the role for the CMAHC being? Like I said, we want it to be that national input clearinghouse. That's the place where everybody can submit their changes, proposals, input, and then we can build from that and move on. And then also we want it to be a support for people who want to use the MAHC. Municipalities, states, whatever, who want to adopt the MAHC, they're going to need some help with that. The adoption part of it, after it's been adopted, how do we implement it, things like that. So we want to be that for them. So we want to maintain an up-to-date knowledge or science-based model aquatic health code that will support aquatics and healthy swimming and safety for everyone. So our mission is to collect, assess, and relay input of the MAHC revisions back to CDC so that they can do the final acceptance. We want to be that advocacy group and support the health departments and other partners who are using the MAHC, like I said. And then we want to solicit, coordinate, and prioritize the research needs. How many of you were on technical committees for the Model Aquatic Health Code? So a few of you, me too. As we were going through and writing these codes kind of from scratch sometimes, and looking at other state jurisdiction, other codes that are out there already, and we started looking at some of these numbers, it's like, how'd they come up with that number? Where did that number come from? And it, it was kind of this method, but, we had no science, though, to back up whether that number's okay, or maybe that number's not okay, but we don't really know. So it was really quick that we realized, hey, we need to do more research on these things, so we need to prioritize what that research agenda is. Some of the advantages of having the conference for the Model Aquatic Health Code. Again, we can be that advocacy for the health departments and legislatures when they're looking at adopting the Model Aquatic Health Code. That's something CDC can't do. We can fundraise to support the MAC because these biennial conferences don't happen for free. So we do need to do some fundraising to make sure that the conference can happen and that everybody can attend or be on the live streaming chat, which we had a large group that was on the live streaming yesterday, and we're very thankful that we had done it that way. We got some really good feedback from them. Jason and I were on the computers replying to people online, and so we had great participation on that side too. So we want to make sure we can still do that kind of technology, which is not cheap. So we do need to do fundraising things for that. We want to be that clearinghouse again so that we're not overburdening a governmental agency that has limited resources. We want to be that entity that kind of keeps CDC on task. No matter who's at CDC, we're going to be that bug in their ear all the time saying, hey, we've got the Model Aquatic Health Code, it's time to renew it, we've got to update it, this is coming down the pike, and you guys need to look at this, and it's still viable and all that. So we need to, keep them on task and be that advisory group so that we can pass that information along to them so that they can adopt it into the future MAHCs. So some of the progress we've made with the CMAHC so far, we are an incorporated 501c3 nonprofit organization. We do have our board of directors has been finalized. I'll ask some of them to hold their hand up in a minute. We have the bylaws done initially. We had to do that in order to get the nonprofit. We're still working on the organizational outline. That was part of the discussions we had yesterday in the group, which was, we got some really great feedback yesterday. I really want to thank all of you who did participate in that exercise. Really appreciate your honesty and the information that you provided to us. It's a lot, we're going to need to sit down and digest everything and the comments that were coming in online and stuff too. But thank you for participating in that. We need to develop, or we are working on developing our financial sustainability plan. We've got the first biennial meeting coming up next year in October, only 12 months away. We've launched our website, www.cmac.org, which you can also, if you go to that website, you can also see the first edition of the Model Aquatic Health Code is posted there, as well as other information, the bylaws and things like that. Other functions we see is outreach. We need to let more people know that the MAC exists, that the first edition's out there, that it is adoptable. We need to provide technical assistance for those who are like, hey, what's this section of the code really mean? And again, the research agenda, developing that and what our priorities should be. Is that the Post-its up there in the back? So if you haven't done so already or prioritized the research agenda, they are posted items back there. You can write down your number or what you think is most important to least important for posting for research. And then developing the toolkits, which Jason kind of alluded to earlier too, for the health departments. So the board of directors currently, the board is a 10-member board. We have both health department, regulatory, and industry representatives on it, so that we have a good feedback from both sides. So right now we have 2 local health departments, 2 state, a builder, a designer, an operator of a large facility, somebody from the hospitality community, and then 2 CDC representatives, which they each have just a half a vote. I'm not sure why they're only half worthy, but the organization, we will have the biennial meetings. Those will be like every 2 years. Again, we had our meeting yesterday it was an organizational meeting, it wasn't a biennial meeting, but it was just to help us get some input on how we should organize the assembly and things like that. The next biennial meeting, the first biennial meeting actually, will be held next year prior to the WAHC. So I'll give you more information on that in a minute. So the board of directors, this is a list of the board of directors. Dr. Michael Beach, are you in? Is he not here? He is the president of the CMAHC. Okay. He's got an excuse. Tricinda Davis is the vice president, and unfortunately Tricinda wasn't able to stay for the conference, but she was here yesterday. Scott Hunsaker is the treasurer. Bob Vincent's the secretary. He's with the state of Florida. Poor Bob had the trains, planes, and automobile issue, so he didn't get to make it to the trip. He's still in Tallahassee. Jim Dunn, who is with Aquatic Development Group, he's our builder on the group. Lieutenant Commander Jason Coons, who you just heard speak. John Lynn, he spoke earlier this morning. He's our big operator from industry. Myself, Tony Mendez, he's with the hospitality group, and Tony had another commitment that came up. He wasn't able to join us either. And then Tim Shea. Tim, are you in here? I don't see Tim. He's with the state of New York's Department of Health. And now we have an executive director. That's one of the things the board had to do. We had to pick an executive director. We are fortunate that Doug, who's been with the Model Aquatic Health Code since its conception, before its birth, probably. He's got 38 years of experience with the New York State Department of Health, and then he retired from there. He's been the director of the Model Aquatic Health Code. He's been the leader for us on the steering committee. He was the vice president and treasurer of the interim CMAHC board before we promoted him to the executive director position, which we made him leave the board then. He couldn't do both. But we're very fortunate to have Doug, who's standing in the back, for those of you who don't know who Doug Sackett is, to take on this task. As heaven knows, the board didn't want to do all those things. Okay, so some of our long-term strategy. We need to develop a sustainable model for renewing the MAHC so that it can continue to happen. We want it to be financially independent, so we need a broad base for a viable long-term financial sustainability, and so that we're viewed as an independent organization. We will continue to partner with CDC and other groups to make the MAHC the best that it can be that national clearinghouse for advising CDC on changes that should be made to the Model Aquatic Health Code, hold the conference every 2 years, and provide that technical assistance, toolkits, and work with the research agenda so that we get the best, newest technology that we can and the best code that we can. So information from yesterday. We did have our very successful meeting yesterday. We had, I think, 129 people in attendance. Some of those were CPO instructors, so they were trying to split their time between the two rooms. We had 164 live streaming connections, so registrants, but a lot of those had multiple people at each of those logons, so a lot of people online. So we kind of working on that organizational structure still, based on that input we got from yesterday. Drafting the research agenda, which we're still working on here. So again, if you have anything that you want to look at on the post-it boards and add your information to that, that would be helpful for us. The volunteers, we're still needing volunteers for the MAC, or the CMAC. So there are volunteer sign-up forms on some of the tables. If you don't have them on your table, there's some back in the back by Doug and Lena, so you can grab one and fill that out and either scan it and email it in to us at info@cmac.org, or you can leave it here with Lena back here. She's waving her hands up there in the back. And then we're going to still continue to work on the timeline for drafting the updates. So we're still working on what that's going to look like. You know, we need to develop the councils and committees and figure out what the time frame is going to be in getting that input and changes in, and then reviewing that. So we've got to massage all that from yesterday and develop that constitution with our bylaws. And that's part of what yesterday's meeting was about, is figuring out what that's going to look like. So just conceptually, I mean, this is kind of how it's going to go. Somebody wants to give input on the code, what changes they think need to be there with the science that they know of. It's going to go to a change request committee who's going to look at that, just make sure that paperwork's done correctly, and that we have enough input to move that on to the next level to some council that will review that and debate that and look at the science and validate the science behind it. And if it's vetted that it's a good change, that we've got the science to back it up, that we can put in the annex, it would be moved on to voting by the whole membership. So we're still working on exactly what that's going to be, but it'll be something like that. And then once that's been voted and approved, it goes to the board of directors, who will then pass it on to CDC. There will also be some standing committees, because, you know, just for regular operation, you need a committee to do the Constitution and bylaws. You need a committee to help with, like, the arrangements for the biennial conference, a committee to handle nominations for the councils and the board. So there's some standing committees that will need to happen too, and we'll have to work on what those will be. The technical review and discussion committees, those councils, the membership will be balanced, kind of like it was in the technical committees in developing the MAC. We'll have industry, a balance of industry and regulatory on those councils. The chair and vice chairs of those councils, probably one will be industry, one will be a regulatory, and then they'll flip-flop who's, you know, one time the regulatory will be the chair, and then the next year, after the next cycle, I guess, probably the industry would be the chair. So we get a balance there of how those committees works. The standing committees, not so important that we have that balance there. It's just more of expertise that would apply to the standing committees. So the vote itself, what we're looking at for the assembly and the voting itself would be kind of like an electoral college would work. So when you sign up for membership for the CMAC, you're kind of declaring at that point what group you're in. And then that's how your vote would be weighted. So although it looks like regulatory has 50%, there's lots of different regulatories. There's state, there's local. I mean, we could have broken up that 50% side too, like we broke it up on the industry side. But so essentially industry has 50%, regulatory has 50%. But this is the proposal for how it would be broken up. So manufacturer suppliers would be 10%, design builders would be 20%, management staff, operator owners would be 20%, and then the regulatory is the other half of the pie. So again, we're looking at doing this every 2 years for renewing the MAHC, because frankly, technology changes pretty frequently in this industry. So new information on recreational water illnesses or injuries come up, and so it's good to be able to renew this every couple of years. I mean, knowing that the people who are adopting it probably aren't going to be adopting it every 2 years, but at least getting that latest code or version out there is important, we felt. So CDC has basically said that they will get the newest version out the following year after the biennial meeting. It will coincide with the Recreational Water Illness and Injury Prevention Week, which is always before Memorial Weekend, that week before Memorial Weekend. So the biennial CMAHC meetings will be held on the odd years starting next year in 2015, and then the updated Model Aquatic Health Code will come out in the even years following those events. So we've got lots of stuff to do in the next 12 months. We need to finalize that whole CMAHC structure. We need to populate those councils and committees. We need to get the word out to call for the position papers for getting changes to the Model Aquatic Health Code. We are continuing to update our website so we have a strong web presence and get the knowledge out, get that information out there about the CMAHC and about the MAHC, and how people can submit their information, what that clearinghouse is going to look like, and then convene those councils and committees so they can look at these proposed code changes and then convene the first biennial meeting. So I'm tired. I don't know about the rest of you, but it'll be a lot of work. But, I figure we've put 7 years into it. What's one more year? So the CMAHC Biennial Conference will be actually and the next WAHC will be in Scottsdale, Arizona. So it'll be a nice time of year to visit Scottsdale. It should be after the monsoons. So. And after the heat. So it should be a perfect time to be there. It'll be October 6th to 7th for the CMAHC before the WAHC. And everybody's seen this slide before, but this is our contact information. If you want to email at info@cmac.org. You can go to either CDC's website or CMAHC's website for more information.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.